Hello YouTube, welcome back to another video on Neverness. Today we're going to take a look at this guy here, this wolf guy, Skia. The game defines him as a main DPS, but after trying him out, he fits more of the role of a Sub Dps and a Debuffer, to me anyway. So let's just jump right into his combat showcase because I feel like it's easier to understand his mechanics that way. So Skia's main mechanic revolves around something called Fang Thrust. Fang Thrust is just a fancy word of like saying time bomb. Basically, whenever you use a basic attack or use your E, your skill, you apply Fang Thrust on the enemy, and then after a while, the Fang Thrust will explode and deal damage. That's basically it. So I'll show you how. So if I use my attack, just watch closely the shadow on the ground below the enemy. So this is 1 stack, 2 stack, 3 stack. So 1 stack is just a pool of shadow, 2 stack is a pool of shadow and 1 golden circle. And then 3 stack is one pool of shadow and then 2 golden circle. You'll be able to see it closer when I use my E. Yeah, so this is like maximum stack, 3 stack. So if I leave now, you'll see that he will continuously explode until like the stack disappears. Yeah, so that's basically his whole mechanic, which is Fang Thrust, a ticking time bomb. And his Q deals damage and then increase the damage of Fang Thrust. So his bread and butter skill is actually his E, because his E most consistently applies Fang Thrust to enemy. His basic attack doesn't really do that much. Because his E, when you use it, you want to use it close to enemy, like this. When you're in the ground, you continuously triggers Fang Thrust that is like already applied to enemy. So if you use it far away from the enemy, like if your first part of your E doesn't hit, your E doesn't really do any damage. I show you now. So if you didn't hit anyone, if you just approach them, nothing happens. So you have to make sure that you already attach, like they already have like Fang Thrust attached to them before you use your E on them. So your best situation is you use your E around a group of enemy and then go into the ground and like just stick to them and trigger the explosion. This is his best way to consistently deal DPS, because the Fang Thrust damage is higher than his basic attack damage. So that is basically his whole like combat mechanic. From that you can see the strength and weaknesses of Skia quite clearly. His strength is when you use E, the enemy cannot attack you, even if the enemy is like not standing here. You're in the ground, you won't be interrupted unless the enemy has an AoE attack that targets the ground, which unfortunately quite a lot of bosses does. And your combo is basically you use your Q and then E, because your Q ultimate increases Fang Thrust damage, and then your E applies Fang Thrust. So basically your combo will look like this: Q and then E, and you basically don't really use your basic attack because it's too unreliable. So that's basically like how you use Skia in combat. The unique thing about him is you don't really rely him that much on combat, but you rely him a lot in overworld traveling and traversal. His skill is very unique in the sense that if you use it before enemy detects you, the enemy won't notice you going past them. So he is very good in ping pause bank heist. I will show you like an example of that. So the bank heist is where Skia shines. So in this room, we know that there's 2 big deer enemy. So you can directly use your skill or even your dash to go into shadow mode. Then you can just like sneak past them without triggering them. That will save you quite a bit of time. And you're doing, yeah, you see, they won't react to you. They will save you a bit of time in the bank heist. Similar to Nanali, Skia skills allows you to go on wall, but I have to say it's not the most reliable skill in the world. So that's one of the benefits of using Skia. So about Skia's awakening, you want to go for number 2 and number 6, because they are basically buffs your E, your bread and butter skill, the one that summons you into the ground. So you want to go for 2 and 6. Number 3, increase your like singular target damage, but that rarely happens for Skia unless you're fighting bosses. But like I said, bosses rarely allows you like just stand there and hit them. They have AoE damage that like hits the ground, so like depends on you. But number 4 is not number 4. Number 5 is a special mention because number 5 is a debuff. Because you can apply flank thrust 3 times, so you can reduce the enemy movement speed by 60%. So that is a debuff for him. And then his resonant effects at 6 when you awaken everything reduces the target's Lakshana resistance by 2%, up to 6%. So that is another debuff effect. So he is a very good sub DPS and debuffer for Lakshana teammate, which in our currently in the game is Hathor. And there's another debuff in his skill, which is this one, the support skill, the suppression. Inflicts an additional Remora when Fang Thrust locks into them in Remora state. So when you inflict Remora 2 times, it lowers the speed of the enemy, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, for Skia's console, there's 2 ways you can go about this. You can either go Street Boxer or you can use Speedy Hedgehog. Speedy Hedgehog is again for more of a sub DPS and support build, debuffer build, and Street Boxer is for like more damage output depending on like your play style that you prefer. I personally prefer to play him as a sub DPS and debuffer. So like, it's truly up to you. For Skia's Arc, there's 3 you can use. 2 if you play him as a sub DPS and debuffer, and 1 if you play it as a main DPS. So for the debuffer, first arc is Good Boy's Grand Adventure. This one, you get it as a drop from fighting the doggy boss from Pawn Moonlight. So this one is a support arc, and this actually applies as well if enemies are controlled by the ultimate, because Skia's ultimate actually applies crowd control as well. So everything here will apply to him. So, but this is normally used by Sakiri. So if you have Sakiri and Sakiri is already using this arc, his second best choice is Tears Beneath the Mask from fighting the bird boss out in the overworld. This is a debuffer arc. And if you are playing him as a main DPS, is this purple A level arc, Watch Your Heads, because it increases his attack and Lakshana damage. But this is a very rare case where the A arc is harder to get than the S arc, because both of the S arc, Good Boy's Grand Adventure and Tears Beneath the Mask, you can grab from the open world, can fight the boss and grab them. But Watch Your Head, the A one, is actually from the gacha. So if you have it, if you want to play him as the main DPS, I guess just use Watch Your Head. If you don't, use Good Boy's Grand Adventure. But if you have Sakiri and you already use this, just use Tears Beneath the Mask. And that's it for his arc. Alright, for Skia's team comp, this is the comp that I recommend at the moment, because a lot of his debuffs relies on him applying a Remora. And for Remora, you need Lakshana and Cosmos, and the best Cosmos burst character at the moment to match him is our MC. So you get him to apply the Remora, and then because if you play him as a debuffer, as a sub DPS, you want to support a main DPS within the same element, which is Lakshana. And currently in the game, the main DPS is Hathor, so you want to get him. And then you want another character that is a general support. In my case, I use Hanyu, because she also triggers Psyche, triggers Stain, which will increase Psyche and Lakshana damage again. So this is the team comp that I currently recommend. That is basically everything we have on Skia. The game define him as the main DPS, but his kit is more of a sub DPS and a debuffer. if you like this kind of guide, this kind of content, please remember to like and follow. And if you have any question, if any suggestion on which character I should cover next, please also drop that in the comments below. Thank you everyone. Have a nice day.